Hello, YouTube. It's Lefty79 once again, joining you for another power ranking show for the NFL Stableford League. I'm the commish, as most of you know me by, and I'm here to give you another dose of 32 teams ranked from least to best, as we have been known to do here in the NFL Stableford League, probably for about going on 2 to 3 years. I've been doing this show on and off. I'm hoping to keep going throughout the season here. I know last year I kind of ended a little bit earlier, but I'm hoping that we'll keep this thing going all the way through to the Super Bowl. But right now, we got some major league news coming up. In week 7, there's been some changes that have been made due to some feedback received in the Discord, and I'm proud to announce these changes. I think they're going to be good for the league in terms of competitive balance. The penalties is something that hasn't been done before since I've started this league. So I think it's something that instead of adding more handicap points, which it's hard to do in a 9-hole. I believe Pat mentioned this, and I believe uh, Eric has mentioned this as well, that you can't really give more points in a 9-hole competition technically. So you have to find other ways to get creative with the scoring. And in the NFL, you have penalties, and they can take points off the board. And that's exactly what's going to be happening starting week 7. So I'm interested to see how this is going to work. Initially, it's going to be the second, fourth, and sixth hole, and the 11th, 13th, and 15th. I didn't want to touch the last 3 holes on each 9 due to the fact that those are the ones that lead to the 2-point conversion or the Hail Mary. And I don't want to really dissuade players from going for it on those. But the early 6 holes are more, you got to keep your focus and get your birdies and when you need them, and or your pars, depending on what your requirement is, and that's based on your handicap tier. And that's another new thing that I've added is bringing in the tier system. Getting away from the flights, because I know there's a lot of up and down with the flights nowadays, especially with elite and platinum players. You don't really see too much in the CC unless you got a guy like Runkabus or One Pump Wonder who are going up the flights at a rapid rate, because they're just underrated coming into the tours, and they've been playing all off season and playing competitions, and that's how you get better. So as it is, we're gonna go with these tiers based on your world golf ranking. Which, if you don't know what the hell the golf ranking is, well, you can find it on the front page, and it lists every golfer known to man on TGC tours, even if they haven't even played in a while. And we have a couple players in our league right now that haven't played on the tours in a little bit. I'm not going to name names. Eddie Baltimore. He was a platinum player when he joined the league. He's down in elite now. I don't think he's played a tour round since it started back up again, and that's okay. You don't have to play the tours to be in this league. But as things go, your WGR will start to slip, and his has slipped. I mean, he's down to like 698 now, I want to say. I mean, he was up in the hundreds, I want to say, previously. But with that said, the inactivity does lead to slippage in your skill set, and I've noticed it too. When I was in elite years ago, I was playing this game religiously. I was playing my own society. I was playing other societies. I was on this game nonstop, and I can't do that anymore. It's just part of running a league and part of having other things to do and other things to play. But I still enjoy this league, and I'm always going to run this league, and as long as until the wheels fall off, until I basically run into some sort of an issue where it's just untenable. But I am glad to see that, that my advice was taken by some others, and the relaunch of the hockey league is back. I'm glad to promote that since I'm in the league. And I'm also happy to see that they've gotten the Discord back up and running, and have done all this work. And definitely it does not go unnoticed by the community. And that's just the great thing about this community, is there's so many great people that are willing to pick up the mantle when something happens. And that's great to see that the KHL, as it's called now, the Kinetic Hockey League, is up and running and in business. So I'm glad to see that, after what happened a couple of weeks ago. It's making lemonade out of when life gives you a lemon, you got to make lemonade, and I think that's exactly what the hockey league is doing right now. And I'm glad to see that the same people that were around in the beginning are still doing it, despite the fact that there's not 1,000 posts a day on the Discord. It's still, I think it's going to be a fun league. But going back into the NFL, I'm going to get these rankings going here. I'm going to give some overview. We did do the tier system. All of the tiers starting week 7, so that'll be next week. These rankings are for after week 5, so just to get you up to speed on that. So the tier system will start week 7. There'll be an A+ tier for your platinum players, like your top 100, I want to say. And then the next tier down is tier A, which will be your lower platinum players and elite type players. And they will not get any handicap points either. They will be at 0, and they'll be getting a point, though, when they do play an A+ player. So when B-Mel's plays anybody, he's going to be giving at least a point if it's a non-A+ tier player. So basically, the A+ tier is the top. They'll be always giving at least 1 point every game unless they're playing another A+ player. Then you go to the B tier, which is mid-elite, low-elite, and kinetic. Basically, B is the pro threshold, and the B tier will be getting a point, but they do have to birdie on their penalty holes. So that's the thing. You got to be birdieing if you're going to be in these top tiers, and they're all based on your WGR. So they're not. If you get a promotion and you're moving up to a different tour next week, or with the promotion event, you're going to be jumping up 4 or 5 flights, which I can honestly see happening. Your WGR is going to fluctuate as well. So for me, it's mainly just seeing the WGR numbers, getting you in the right tier, and then having it good to go. That way, I just have to check and see what your number is, and that ranking will fluctuate, but generally, like, it won't be like every other week, because when you win a tour event, you can go up a flight right away. But with your WGR, it usually takes a little bit of time for that to jump at least, a couple hundred spots. So, but going forward, also we moved down to C+ tier, which that's going to be. I did divide the C tier and the plus and then regular, because the WGR numbers dictated that. If you're in the C+ tier, you're going to get 2 points a handicap, but you're also going to have to birdie on your penalty holes. And if you're in the C tier, tier C, it's 2 points of handicap, and you only have to par. And a lot of that is because those players are down in CC, a little bit lower in the rankings. The C tier is around 500 to 600 in the rankings. And then I think the low threshold was Eddie at like 690. And then the C tier is around 800s, and that's where I'm at. So that's where there's a good group of players in that tier right there. I tried to group it so that we at least had like 4 or 5 players in the same tier. A+ tier, I think, only has 3 players, and they know who they are. So, but continuing on, then we get the D tier, which gets 3 points a handicap, and they'll have to par their penalty holes. And then not the F tier, it's the E tier. I got rid of the F tier. Didn't want that stigma attached to that F tier. The E tier is the lowest tier, which is 4 points, which is the lowest handicap, the highest handicap you can get. We get 4 currently with some players as well. And you have to par your penalty holes. I've been talking about penalty holes. The reason how I arrived at the number of having each 9 have 3 penalty holes is because in an NFL game, the average number of penalties is 12, and that's both teams. So you got 6 penalties total in each half that way. So that's how I split it up. And then each team has the opportunity at each specific hole to either not lose points or continue on forward. I didn't want to make the penalty holes different for each player just because of the fact that there might be a hole on the course easier than another, and that just doesn't make it fair to me. I'd rather it be at the same hole, which basically means that you're gonna have the same opportunity as your opponent to avoid a penalty. The penalties are for the birdie players. If you par, it's a -1 point. If it's a bogey, it's -2. And a double or worse is a -3. So it can be pretty punitive. You will get the points that you score regularly, but then the penalty will be added on at the end of the 9. So if you get a 2 on your penalty hole and you're supposed to get a birdie, you'll get the 2, but you'll also have the -1 as well. So that's your penalty. And then for the par players, if you par, no penalty, obviously. A bogey would be a -1, and then a double would be a -2. So a little bit less punitive for the lower uh, tiered players. So I think going forward, interested to see. I think some players are still going to kill it. Obviously, I think 30 points has been very, very easy to come by this season compared to previous. And that was a little bit by design because of the fact they introduced the 2-point conversion. And the Hail Marys have just been a lot more prevalent this year. Like in years past, that was always a little bit of a 50-50. I think nowadays guys are trained now to know that I got to get that birdie at the end, otherwise I'm not going to win. So I think that the penalties are going to add a little bit more stress to the round. And I'm not saying you're going to see 19-10 games or 15-14 games, but I am thinking that a penalty is going to swing a game, and it does. In the NFL, it clearly does. I mean, that's why you have a lot of people complaining about the refs every week online. So it's just how it works. We'll see how good our refs are after week 7, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this all goes down. But that's a little bit of an intro to what's coming up. Let's get to what we are going through right now, which is finishing up week 5. Our division leaders right now after this week are the Steelers at 5-0, Pat Strife leading the AFC North. The Colts of Indianapolis 5-0, B-Mel's leading the AFC South. The Buffalo Bills are in a tie with the New York Jets for the AFC East right now at 3-2. Bills technically have the tiebreaker, but it's still way early yet. And then in the AFC West, you have the Los Angeles Chargers at 4-0 of Chinatown, who just keeps on killing it. Will there be a new number 1 team this week? We'll have to find out. But now we're going to go to the NFC, and the Packers are leading the North at 3-2. The Falcons lead the South at 3-2. The Cowboys of Turd Ferguson are leading the NFC East at 4-1. And then finally, you got Weirzy and the Seattle Seahawks leading the NFC West at 3-1. So 3 undefeated teams in the AFC, none left in the NFC. We'll find out here after week 5 if those teams, well, obviously I kind of gave it away with the 5-0 records that the Steelers and Colts are still undefeated. But we'll see if they moved it all in these rankings. And then the Chargers obviously did not have a game in week 5 as they had a bye. So at least one team will be undefeated going after week 6. They're going into week 6. So we know the Chargers survived week 5. And we also know the Steelers and Colts did too. So cat's out of the bag there, and that's okay. But then we're gonna go to gainers and losers for this week. The big gainers are the Jaguars and the Jets. The Jaguars went up 10, and the Jets went up 9. Bing had a really big week. We're gonna get into that. And David Dix had a nice win as well. The Cardinals of Art Vandelay move up 8 spots this week, and the Patriots of Carroll also get a nice 6-spot jump. So some nice wins there. We'll get into those in a little bit. And then the losers this week were the Dolphins of Tom Santa Claus down 13. The Bengals down 9 of Mark Lawrence. And the Broncos of Why So Serious down 7. Austin had a rough one in week 5. But we're going to get into it right now at number 32. Our newest member of the league is Toombinator. And he's at number 32 at a 1-4 record. No change this week for the Raiders after they lost at home to the Packers 23-22 in a heartbreaker. It was a good game. The Packers just had a little bit too much at the end. They were able to squeak that one out. I really appreciate Tommy joining the league. I know he's been, in baseball previously and also in hockey. So I think this is going to be a good challenge for him going forward. He's a PC player, so add another PC player into the mix. And I think it'll be fun to see if the Raiders can turn their season around. Still lots of potential here, as they are 1-4, but at the same time, it's still only 5 weeks into the season, and there's still a lot of football left to be played. As we now move to number 31, well, the guy who is saying that Tommy took his job, it's the Carolina Panthers of Polecat at 0-5. Despite the 0-5 record, they're still only number 31 as they're down 1 spot this week after losing at Detroit 31-27. They gave a pretty good effort there, but Detroit's just been looking really good this year at times, and CF had just too much offense in that one. But we'll see if Josiah can turn things around next week here in week number 6. As we now move to number 30, I don't have next week's games. I just noticed that, so I'm going to kind of run through this a little bit faster. I did forget to get those added, but that's okay. I mean, I had a lot to talk about to start this show, and we're just going to get through like what they did in week 5 and what their ranking is, and then going forward, just a quick summary of how their season's going so far here as we head into pin number 2 in week 6. But we're at number 30 now, and let's find out who that is. It's the Houston Texans of Paul, the Taft Man. 1-4, down 1 spot this week after losing at Atlanta, 26-24 in a tough one there. Don't know where the offense has gone. I know they were scoring a lot of points early on in the season. I just think maybe there's a little bit of a disconnect there with the points, but I think the Texans have been competitive in every game, and there's just been a couple issues with just getting nipped at the end with the scoring, and I think with the penalties coming in, a lot of these Xbox players, I mean, they've been going for it as it is, but I just think now with the consistency that they're going to have now with their new setups, like you're not going to see the wild fluctuations like you used to see. I just think that the penalties are going to make it so that you just want to be solid. You don't want to be too up and down, and like there's going to be holes like the non-penalty holes where you could probably go for it and go for that albatross, which another thing I forgot to mention, the albatrosses, aces, condors are now increased in point value, and an ace as well. So an ace is now worth 6 on any par 3. Albatross is now worth 7, and you got your good old double eagle or condor now worth 8. So anytime those happen in any round, you will get that bonus, and that will be the score that you get. So sometimes you're going to see a Hail Mary hole maybe be a par 3 on some courses, and if you get that golden ace, that would be huge because that would be 12 points for you, and that could just completely flip a game around. So as it is, I mean, your Hail Mary, you have a potential for a 12-point Hail Mary on a double on a ace at the end of a round. That'd be insane if that happens. But as it is, I mean, I think having an ace and having players go for the ace, and just they're so rare as it is in this game, that it is worth celebrating and worth adding those extra points. And I think that it's going to add a little bit more of a dimension to some of the top players as well. It gives them something to shoot for. Like, could we actually get a 40-point game in the NFL Stableford? Yes, we can. We definitely could. I've seen an albatross already this season. Orange Aggie had one earlier in the season, and he didn't get credit for the 7 points at the time because it was only worth 5. But if it happens on a Hail Mary hole, it's worth 14. So at that point, that's huge, and that basically just clinches the game for you. So we'll see. There could be a 40-point game in NFL Stableford League in the NFL Stableford League this season yet. I'm not saying it won't happen, but I'm not going to count it out. I know some of these players are, we got some of the top players in the game playing in this league, and it definitely could happen. But for Paul, he's just going to look to get back on the winning track in week 6, and I definitely think he can do that. As we now go to, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to go into my schedule here, and I will go over the future matchups here in week 6. I just think that's just too big of an omission to keep going forward here, as I know I already have the matchups here. I can look in my look on my screen here, but we know the teams that don't have a week 6 matchup are the Green Bay Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. They will not have a week 6 game to talk about this week. But we also know that the Vegas Raiders at number 32 are going to be hosting the New England Patriots, which that'll be a good one. And then we know that the Carolina Panthers of Josiah are going to be on the road at Miami. So that one's going to be tough for them, as Miami's coming off of a loss, and they're going to be fired up. And then that Paul, at number 30, the Texans are hosting the Saints. So that's another interconference matchup. Two teams that are, the Saints are not doing too bad, but it's two Xboxers, and I'm interested to see how that one's going to go down. As we go to number 29, and let's find out which team is there at that spot. It's the San Francisco 49ers of Bogey Mike Bonacore. They're 1-4 after losing at home to Dallas 29-24. They're down 3 spots this week. And I know Mike had some great feedback about the league. It's his first year playing in it. And he felt the pressure early on. You could tell he wasn't too thrilled with the way things are going. You get wound up in these rounds sometimes. And I think with the penalties, I don't think it's going to help him. But at the same time, his opponents aren't going to get helped by it either. And I just think you can't give up on your round, even if you have one slip up. And I think he found that out early on, that you can bounce back and get back where you need to be. As in week 6, the 49ers will be going on the road at the Browns, and that's going to be a tough one. But it's doable because with the way NFL Stableford works, you just got to get hot for the last few holes of a 9, and you can pull it out. So we'll see if the 49ers can do that in week 6 on the road at the defending Super Bowl champion Cleveland Broncos, who are definitely Cleveland Broncos, Cleveland Browns, who are having a Super Bowl hangover season. As we now go to number 28, I know I mentioned him earlier in the show as one of our, not a sandbagger, but he just hasn't been playing the tours a lot. It's the Baltimore Ravens of Eddie, a Be More Golf Pro, down 6 spots this week after losing at Pittsburgh, 29-27. Tough divisional rivalry there. Only one win for the Ravens is pretty rare to see that, as Eddie's usually fighting at the top of that division, and it usually is a playoff perennial team. But not so much this year. Things are a little bit tougher. Uh, could be some distractions, could be some other things going on, but glad to have Eddie in the league, and it's good to see the Ravens posting and staying active in the league, as he's been in the league from the darn near beginning of it, so just glad to have him here. But as it is going forward, it will be the Ravens taking on the Tennessee Titans overseas in London. That will be the London game in week 6, and he gets to play a player from that side of the pond in Sky Blue Ben and his Tennessee Titans. So we'll see what happens there for the Ravens, as they will still be in their old tier yet until week 7. So week 6 is still going to be under the previous rules yet. Not quite there yet. So, but we'll go to number 27, and one of our newer players in the league. It's the Minnesota Vikings of Andreas. They're 1-4. KOA is down 4 spots this week. They're losing at home to the Kansas City Chiefs in overtime, 33-27. That was a tough one. Just not getting some bounces, I think. And Andreas is a great player. He's up in platinum now. I think he just got promoted. I know he's friends with Kevin. And I'm sure he's going to start getting some wins here in the league shortly. But I think he's just taking his lumps right now. And once, players get their feet wet in this thing and they just find it, I think that's what's going to happen here. Will it start next week, though, in week 6 at Chicago? That's the question, as Runkabus has been on fire. So we'll see if the Vikings can get a win over their divisional rival in week 6. As we now move to number 26, that will be the spot of the team that had the biggest drop this week. The Miami Dolphins of Tom Santa Claus are 2-3 at number 26. They're down 13 after that crushing loss at home to the Giants, 31-23. Wow. Tag Rocket just put the Jets on in that one, and it was done. Unfortunately for Miami, that really took a hit in the rankings for that. But honestly, I think there was a lot of fluctuation with some of these other teams getting wins that I don't know if the Dolphins are this bad. It's still early days yet, but they're still in that AFC East, and it's very competitive, and still only one game behind the Bills and Jets. Next, the Dolphins will take on the Carolina Panthers at home. So definitely a chance for a bounce back there for the Dolphins. I definitely see Tom turning things around after that rough game against the G-Men. As we now hit the top 25, we're going to move on from Miami, and we're going to head a little bit west to the New Orleans Saints. In the number 25 spot, Platypus Brigades 2-3. Down 6 spots, though, after losing at New England in overtime, 30-27. That was a tough one. It went about 4 extra holes, I want to say, and then it was 1 on a par. So it's the first time I think we've had an overtime game decided by a par. So that's why that's why it was only a field goal. Tough loss there, though, for Platypus, as next he'll be taking on the Houston Texans on the road, and will look to bounce back from that heartbreaker. As we now move to number 24, let's find out who we have there. It's the Cincinnati Bengals of iGolfBad. 2-3 record for the Bengals, as they didn't bungle it this week. Actually, they kind of did. They're down 8. They're down 9 after bungling it at Arizona, 26-24. We didn't get to hear about it on the stream, but I heard it was a pretty much a laugh riot. So if you were in the Discord with Art and Mark, I'm sure that was hilarious. Um, but as it is, the Bengals gonna try to bounce back though in week 6, and they're gonna be facing a pretty tough opponent at home in the Seattle Seahawks, who are coming off a bye. So this might be an opportunity. Coming off a bye week, there might catch a team napping. So we'll see if the Bengals can do that and get right back into it in the AFC North right now, where the Steelers are running away with it. As you know, move to number 23. Well, it's the team that beat the Bengals. As we move the right way, it's the Arizona Cardinals of Art Vandelay up in the Jordan spot, number 23, at a 2-3 record. So we got a little bit of symmetry there as Art moved up a big 8 spots after that win at home against Cincinnati, 26-24. It's always a refreshing week to see Art get that win. I know he's been struggling a lot and in other competitions and things, but in NFL Stableford, when you see an Arizona win, kind of warms the cockles of your heart a little bit. At least for me, it does, because I know Art puts a lot into this, and I know you know, he does streams. He loves the league. Love having him in the league, and you know what? It's fun to root for the guy and be on his streams. So we'll see how he does this week though at Los Angeles in the Rams. So that'll be a tough one. Week 6. 2 PC players. Will they get up and hook it up on stream? I don't know. We're running out of time, as we only got about 24 hours or so left in this week. A little bit more than that yet. Not till Wednesday at midnight, so there's still definitely time. But we'll see. I mean, that'll be a big matchup there between a CCF player and an elite player. Well, Platinum now, I believe, after being promoted this past week, as the Rams owner did. So, but that doesn't matter in week 7, as we'll be going to the new tier system. So there'll be penalties and there'll be other fun things happening, but not until next week. But this week it will be the Rams and the Cardinals hooking it up in a divisional matchup, and we'll see if Art can keep the winning ways going. As we now move to number 22, they're coming off a big win, and it's the New England Patriots of Carroll, who are 2-3 after that win against the Saints in overtime at home. They are up 6 spots. I believe I mentioned that earlier in the show. And next they'll be taking on the Vegas Raiders on the road. So that'll be a big one. If Carroll can get that one and get right back into the thick of it in the AFC East, then that's going to be tough, because I believe once she gets going with the new tier system and the new things that are happening, this could benefit. I mean, I know Belichick knows the rules and knows how to play that game, and I have a feeling with the way the Patriots are going, uh, they're waiting to just jump on their opponents here, and I just think that's going to happen. Carroll's pretty new to the league, but she's been putting up pretty good points, scores, and definitely I just feel like the Patriots have been good in this league in the past, and it's been a while. It's been a while, since Brady's left, and it's been a while since Moneyman had these guys in the playoffs. And then Franz, I believe, had a nice run with them. And now it's Carroll's turn, in my opinion. I think that the Patriots are just going to get right back into it, and we'll see if they can do that starting here in week 6 on the road at Las Vegas, at the home of the Super Bowl this season. win encore, which will be a good one. As we now move to number 21, as we go to Blackjack from Vegas, it's the Detroit Lions. And Motor City Dan Campbell and Motor City CF are at 2-3, up 5 spots this week after beating the Carolina Panthers at home 31-27. So the NFC North is still in the sights of the Lions. I mean, they're only a game behind the Packers right now. And CF is definitely putting up some big scores lately. His real life Lions are killing it. And they're going to be going on the road at Tampa Bay in week 6. And that's going to be interesting as they'll be giving up a little bit there on the road to Zuby. So we'll see if the Lions defense can show up for that one and keep their winning ways going in beautiful Tampa, Florida. As we now move to number 20, we're in the top 20 now. And a little bit surprising to find this team this low. It's the Los Angeles Rams of Kevin, who are at 2-3. They're up 5 spots this week, though, after beating the Philadelphia Eagles at home 28-26. So a little bit of an upset there. But I don't. Is it really? Because I think Kevin is a hell of a player, but he's just had some bad luck here in the early stages of this season. But next, the Rams are going to take on the Arizona Cardinals in week 6. So a chance to get back to 500 for either one of those two teams. So it's going to be interesting. They've had great battles in the past on stream. We'll see if they do it again. We'll be there if it happens. You can count on that. As we now move to number 19 and a team we just mentioned, it's kind of funny how that works sometimes with these rankings. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of Zuby, checking in at 2-2. They had a bye week in week 5, so they did move down 1 spot though due to some other movement around them in the rankings. And again, they will be playing the Detroit Lions at home in week 6. So we'll see if Zoobs can get things going and get back in the NFC South battle. Right now, they're only a half game behind, so definitely just trying to find some consistency, and maybe they can do that at home. As we now move to number 18, it's the Green Bay Packers of Lefty. Yours truly is 3-2. I'm up 2 spots after clipping the Vegas Raiders on the road 23-22. Admittedly, did not have my A game for that one, but it was enough to win. And the Packers somehow finding themselves atop the NFC North. Never going to complain about that, but definitely could play better. But it could always be 0-5 right now. And the Packers are going to go into their bye week and sit on the lazy boy and enjoy watching some football from afar as the leaders of the NFC North. Man, does that sound good. As we now move to number 17, after some aggrandizement there, as I am glad to be leading my division, as anybody would be at this point. As we now move to number 17, it's the Kansas City Chiefs of Ty Lannister at 3-2. Kike is up 4 spots though after that big overtime win at Minnesota, with Taylor not in attendance, but it got the job done either way. So we'll see if Kelsey and crew can keep things going on the Eras tour as they take on the Denver Broncos at home at Arrowhead in week 6. That'll be an interesting one, as that's the AFC West rivalry there on Thursday Night Football. So we'll see how that one goes down in week 6. As we now head to the halfway point in these rankings, let's see who we have. It's the Atlanta Falcons of Pro W Dino. Prouse up one spot this week after beating Houston at home 26-24. So the Falcons leading the NFC South on the back of that win. And next, I believe they've already played their home game against the Washington Commanders. That's going to be a tough one, as the Commanders have been playing better as of late, and we haven't heard from them yet in these rankings. So we'll see what happens in Week 6, though, as that will be a tough one at home for the Falcons. As we now move to number 15, right next door, it's the Philadelphia Eagles of Orange Aggie at 3-2. Down 5 spots after losing at the LA Rams at 28-26. Really no shame in that, but you know that Rams, it's tough to play there sometimes at SoFi. So, but the Eagles are down 5. They're looking to bounce back. They still are, in shouting distance of the NFC East right now, with the Cowboys leading at 4-1. And next, the Eagles will be taking on the New York Jets on the road. So that's going to be a tough one, because David can light it up at his home course at any time. So we'll see how things go for those teams. There'll be a lot of green on the field, I'll say that, in Week 6 in East Rutherford. As we now go to number 14, let's see who we have for that number. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars of Dr. Bing, Mark Binger, at 2-3, the highest ranked 2-3 team out of all of them, after a huge 10-spot jump after winning at Buffalo 31-30. Yep, winning at Buffalo is going to help you every time, especially when you're having some struggles. And that was a huge turnaround for the Jaguars to pull that win off. Now, can they keep that momentum going, though, is the question in Week 6 at home against the Indianapolis Colts, who are undefeated in league play so far this year. So we'll find out if Bing can keep things going in Jayville. As we now go to number 13, another team that's hot, another new team owner that's been on a tear in this league since joining. It's the Chicago Bears of Runkabus. Tony actually is the highest rated 2-3 team. Correction, it's Runkabus. But Bing's right there. I mean, these two guys are right there at 2-3. Runk is down 1, though, after losing at Washington 30-29. It was a good game. That was a very close one. That one could have gone either way. But the Bears still within shouting distance in that NFC North, only a game behind, tied with the Lions. And next, they are going to take on the Minnesota Vikings at home. So we'll see if Runk can get back in the winning ways going forward here, and if they can bounce back after that tough loss on the road at Washington. But now we go to number 12, edging our way ever closer here to the top. Will we have a new top team this week? We'll have to find out. But right now we got Why So Serious at number 12 at 3-2. Down 7 spots this week after losing at home to the New York Jets 27-26. Tough loss for the Broncos there, as that really kind of hurt them in terms of the division race. They're down 2 now to the Chargers. But still early yet. And the Broncos definitely will have a chance to bounce back in Week 6, though, with the Thursday night game at Kansas City. So we'll see if Austin can get that one done. As we now go to number 11, we're just outside the top 10 here, and let's find out who we have at number 11. It's the Tennessee Titans of Sky Blue Ben at 3-2. Down 4 spots this week after losing at Indianapolis 31-27. Again, no shame in losing to the undefeated team who's just running through the league right now. But the Titans put up a pretty good fight, and that's why they didn't really drop too much this week. They're going to look to turn things around, though, in Week 6 at home against the Baltimore Ravens, and we'll see if they can do that. That would be a nice win for them in the AFC in terms of tiebreakers, because that one could always come down to an end of the season deal where two AFC teams. You always want to win those conference games because that's your biggest tiebreaker when it comes to wild card, other than your divisional games. So we'll see if Sky Blue Ben can turn things around and jump back up in these rankings. As we now hit the top 10, we're at number 10, and it's the Buffalo Bills of Leon, who just stopped here at 3-2. They did lose in week 5 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, as mentioned a little bit earlier, in that nail biter, 31-30. They did drop 6 though. I mean, they didn't drop out of the top 10 though, so I think Bills Mafia will be okay with that. The effort was there. I mean, 30 points usually is enough to win. So yeah, maybe a little bit harsh moving down that much, but they're gonna look to try to get it all back in week 6 as they take on the New York Giants, their in-state rivals from the NFC this week. That will be an interesting matchup as Tag Rocket has been playing lights out these days again, and we haven't mentioned him yet in these rankings, so we'll have to find out. But a lot of New York flavor here coming up in a little bit. As we stay in the East, though, let's find out who number 9 is. Well, it's the Washington Commanders of the Cobra Chicken at 3-2, up a big 5 spots though after beating Chicago at home, 30-29. Put up a nice 30 burger, and the Cobra Chicken's making a nice run here to get right back into the thick of the NFC East. In week 6, we'll see if they can keep it going on the road at Atlanta, as that would be a big NFC win if they could get that, especially for tiebreakers. So we'll see how things go for Marcus here in week 6, but he's definitely taking command of that squad. As we now move to number 8, let's find out. Well, it's a team that did not have a game this week. It's the Cleveland Browns of Insane Eric at 2-2. Up 3 spots this week due to some other dropping going on. Don't really see that too often, but it did happen this week as some teams above him did lose. And I don't like to drop teams if they have a bye, but sometimes you move up, and this time he did. But now he's going to have to take on the San Francisco 49ers at home in week 6, and that's going to be a tricky one, as the 49ers are definitely playing with some passion right now, and the Browns are going to be coming off a bye, so they might be a little bit rusty. So we'll see what happens in week 6 there. As we now head to lucky number 7, as we get toward the end here. I know I kind of went a little bit long with some of the explanations earlier, but it's the New York Jets of number 7 of D. Dix Jr. David's at 3-2, up a big 5 spots from last week after beating Denver on the road 27-26. So a nice jump there, as the Jets now will take on the Buffalo Bills. Actually, no, that's wrong. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. They're right next to each other here in the schedule, so I got them a little bit transposed. But the Eagles are going to come in, and that's going to be a big matchup. That could be a matchup of the week right there between two teams that are above 500 at 3-2 and looking to make some hay in their respective divisions. As we now move to number 6, another team that had a bye week and they're looking to bounce back. It's the Seattle Seahawks of Weirzy, who are at 3-1. They're up 3 spots this week as well, coming off that bye. Next, they'll be taking on the Cincinnati Bengals on the road. It's going to be interesting to see after that big. It's going to be a lot of travel, but they did have a good week of rest, so we'll see if the bye week helped them or hurt them in week 6. As we now go to number 5, let's find out who we got. The number 5 team is the New York Football Giants of Tag Rocket. They're 3-2 and they're up 3 spots after beating the Miami Dolphins on the road 31-23. Don has turned it on. You could tell after losing the first 2, he's won 3 straight. And now the Tag Rocket, the Toggle Rocket, the Tagmeister moves on to take on the Buffalo Bills in week 6. That's going to be a matchup, folks. That one will be on Sunday Night Football, and we'll have a lot of eyes on it. So we'll see how that one goes for Mr. Toggle. As you now move to number 4, and it's the Toggle Rocket's friend, who he brought into the league and is his division rival. It's the Dallas Cowboys at number 4 at 4-1, up 2 spots after beating the San Francisco 49ers like a drum, 29-24, up 2 and leading that division. So good job for Turd. Tim's doing a great job in the league so far. Really seen a great improvement from week to week here. And we'll look to see if they can keep the momentum going in week 6 on Monday night against the Los Angeles Chargers on the road. Now we're in the top 3. Here is where the controversy starts. Let's find out who it is. It's the Los Angeles Chargers of Chinatown. He had a bye. Like I said, I don't like to drop teams usually when they're on their bye, but this was an exception. Chinatown is 4-0, down 2 this week after having the bye. But I felt like there were a couple teams this week that were a little bit better in terms of their performances, and I thought that that was enough to displace him as the number 1 team. But if they can beat the Cowboys at home in week 6, I am sure that the Chargers will be back at number 1. But this week, the Chargers slip a little bit to number 3 through no fault of their own. As we now go to number 2, let's find out who the number 2 team is. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers of Pat Strife at 5-0, up 1 spot after beating the Baltimore Ravens 29-27. An impressive victory there against the division rival. And next, the Pittsburgh Steelers will be taking their act to the bye week. So they will stay at 5-0 through this next rankings. Will they move up or will they move down? That's the question. They aren't gonna. They can probably stay the same too. But it's all going to depend on what happens with our number 1 team. I believe this is the first time they've ever been number 1 in the NFL Stableford League since its inception. The Indianapolis Colts of B-Mells. Who's playing any better than B-Mells right now in the TGC Tours? Not too many people. B-Mells is 5-0, up 1 spot after beating Tennessee 31-27 at home. And now we'll take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who just put a big 30 points up last week. And we'll see if they can do it again. Because that's probably what they're going to need to do to beat the Colts, who are just on fire right now. So, those are the top teams in the NFL Stableford League. And those are your power rankings. Do you agree with them? Do you not agree with them? Let me know in the Power Rankings channel on Discord, or tell me on the forums. You can, either way, you can reach out and find out what I have to say, because you've already listened to this show. But as is, you can always chime in with your feedback. I always like hearing from you. And once again, this is Lefty79 signing off for another Power Rankings show. We got through it. and it was fun. But once again, it's the Indianapolis Colts at number 1. Hi, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening and being in the NFL Stableford League and being a fan of the NFL Stableford League. Now I will say goodbye.